Jotic is a medical specialty of mitochondria, of the single largest organ in the body by surface area. It's a discontinuous organ. One that I elaborate on in my book, Metabolic Topology. It is a 15-chapter, 3-book set that's so important. Where mitochondria is a separate operating system from the combinatorial DNA that individuals get from their mother and father. It comes from their mother only. It happens to be a vestige of stage 1 life that stayed with us, and stage 2 life that morphed with us. It happens to be the system that morphs more during your natural life than the combinatorial kind. It happens to be incredibly important for everyday health, where we know in the medical science that mitochondria are the cells in the body that tag and bag disease tissue, parasites, both. It makes life and death decisions for cells. And so, this medical specialty is so important to call out separately because it happens to be an area of causation where we know that the Jotic, from the ancient Lithuanian word for the horse, it happens to be the most important causal feature in fighting off many parts of metabolic disease, including parasites. Where mitochondria is such an important part of our system. Again, we call it Jotine, which means the ride of the horse. Jotic as the medical specialty. And we know that it's a vestige of our morphology. It's so important that it happens to be a separate nucleic acid system. We feel so strongly that we think that Jotine Olympic is a whole separate medical sect. It's a medical sect, aside from medical doctor, that's a medical sect where the doctrine has the Hippocratic Oath prioritized first with human ability, sports ability. It's the doctrine of human ability. So important. There isn't a single medical school that graduates physicians in the Jotic Olympic tradition, and yet that happens to be one of our ancient good doctor tribes, is the Olympic tradition. Something that was a global movement, something that became a global movement again in 1896. And so this thing, Jotine Olympic is so important as a medical specialty. There's a separate second medical specialty tied to Jotine, which would be correctly described as the metabolic topology medical sect, which is the biochemist's Jotine-centered cure of diseases, which is separate from the way that we organize by organs often, or by the facilities that physicians practice in. And so there's two whole medical sects tied to Jotine, and should. There used to be more medical sects in America prior to the Flexner Report in 1910, prior to Andrew Carnegie donating. We're looking for the new Andrew Carnegie to donate towards these two new medical sects. We know that they're both independent and important. You can be a part of the Olympic movement. We know that America is way under facility invested in Olympic training facilities. We're way over invested in things, no disrespect to my friends in football, but we're way over invested in football stadiums, way under invested in Olympic training facilities, and entirely uninvested in Olympic training medical schools, entirely uninvested in metabolic topology medical schools, which again, those medical sects from before 1910, we had 66 different Good Shepherd traditions. And because of the success of the medical science revolution of the 19th century, one that happened to have been led, by horse shepherds, which is incredibly important, we happen to have shut down the medical sects that seem to have less adherence to medical science. Mitochondria is central to physiology and to health. It happens to be central to sports medicine as well. Those two medical sects are so important to add into the mix because, again, the Olympic movement is worthy of having medical schools focused on sports medicine. And that movement is something that should happen earlier in medical training than in residency. There are sports medicine residents, which is an important cadre of individuals and enthusiasts, and yet every last one of them would want to be a part of, as a faculty member, as a professor of a true, Jotine Olympic medical sect, as there should be. That's one of the 66 old good doctor tribes that, after 1910 we did away with those medical sects, not entirely for good reason, but we could all agree, it goes without saying, selbstverständlich, that Jotine Olympic, mitochondria Olympic, is a medical sect, comparable with an osteopath. Has to be. And metabolic topology, which comes from my book, my 15-chapter set, so too is a medical sect, where understanding that the Krebs cycle is not a cycle, but is reversible based on the acidity at a local level within mitochondria, it is such an important idea, which happens to be behind so much of metabolic disease and metabolic diseases, that having medical schools that are entirely focused on metabolic topology is essential if we're serious about reversing the tide of BMI, of rising body mass index, reversing the tide of metabolic diseases. And, in the last 10 years or so, we've had a decrease in life expectancy. We know that metabolic topology is a medical sect that stands on its own. There are vestiges of metabolic topology in residencies, but it's worth training people for metabolic topology medicine. Even if many of them are researchers or scientists, and some of us read about the scandal in the, Stanford Medical School, where the dean, happened to have been falsifying their data, with, clip art. Clip art medicine is, the alarm bell that, we haven't been curing illnesses at the rate that we were seeing under, Louis Pasteur, under Jonas Salk. And we know that so many of the disease cures can be found in our understanding, our discovery in basic science, and our translation in medical science of metabolic topology, which is a discontinuous organ. It's mitochondria. It's everywhere in your body. There's different estimates of how many trillions of mitochondria, and again, it would vary dramatically between individuals. But metabolic topology is such a critical component in our medical science program, and we had vestiges of metabolic topology before 1910, and we shut those all down, which was partially wrong. Sometimes because those medical scientists and those physicians didn't have a cadaver lab, didn't do autopsies as part of medical training. When autopsy and cadaver labs are not what makes a doctor. Autopsies have decreased so much in frequency that it can't be described as what modern medicine is. In the old shepherd tradition, the veterinary surgeons were the ones that were superior in horses. Doing surgery, on horses was seen as a higher trade, a more noble trade than doing autopsies. Not to say that autopsies aren't important, but metabolic topology would include research into veterinary surgeon work. Something I happen to have done work as a veterinary surgeon. Hans Adolf Krebs, who's behind the Krebs cycle, was also an individual that put his work into autopsies on pigeon, where he documented the Krebs cycle by looking at a dead pigeon. It's a very important animal model of mitochondria. Now, Homo sapien mitochondria are different. And the farther you get, from the, home species, the bigger the differences you'd have in finding. But the substrates, again, Krebs' own data shows that the metabolic topology is reversible, which the headline on that is so important because family medicine doctors don't know that pH reverses the Krebs cycle, because it's not taught that way in medical school. It is a difference in doctrine. A metabolic topology medical sect is a cure first medical sect. We want to have a cure first medical sect in America. That's what metabolic topology is. And we love our our medical doctor friends. They'd be the first ones to agree that their training isn't cure first. It's do no harm first. And that happens to be a difference in Hippocratic priorities. But join us in donating and evangelizing to others this Jotine medical specialty, which is mitochondria, as part of the leading expect, Jaghetic, which is the unification of quality and finance. If you want to be a philanthropist, you want to be the next Andrew Carnegie, look no farther than these two new medical sects that have to be founded. Where those buildings are the ones you want to have your name on. Is sports medicine, Jotine Olympic medical sect, which a big portion of that is mitochondrial. And then the metabolic topology, which is where disease cures are, is the specialized mitochondria in our organs throughout our body. Because those are the cells. Those are the part of you that tag and bag the parasites, the dead tissue, the bad guys. We need them on our team. We need you on our team. Those of you that haven't joined the movement yet, join us. With the Jotic medical specialty under the those two new medical sects, which include sports medicine, an Olympic style Jotine Olympic medical sect, and now featuring the metabolic topology medical sect, featured in my book, the 15-book set, which is also on sale at profi.me.